On to the first technical session. It is my pleasure to introduce the first technical session speaker, CA DS Vivek. DS Vivek, FCA, is a business catalyst, entrepreneur, coach, trusted advisor, speaker and out-of-the-box thinker. Managing partner at Suresh & Co. Chartered Accountants, formerly tax consultant, PricewaterhouseCoopers, advising businesses around the world for 21 plus years. Passionate about creating simple and holistic solutions addressing business, commercial, tax and regulatory requirements. He is known for achieving commercial efficiency without compromising corporate governance. He has avid interest in the game of life. Mr. DS Vivek has vast knowledge and experience in business restructuring and merger and acquisition, which are his key areas of specialization. His strength is in building CA practice and practice management tools and methodologies. His other areas of specializations are tax and regulatory advice, FEMA consultancy, corporate law consultancy, domestic and international tax structuring, and corporate business consultancy. CA DS Vivek has also presented important papers on direct taxes at various forums. Professional achievements, academics, rank holder in CA final, inter and foundation exams, Vice President of International Fiscal Association Bangalore Chapter. His other significant achievements are involved in publication of ICI titled Career, the Essential Roadmap for Young Entrepreneurs, co-author of Digital Commerce and Analysis of Taxation, co-author of International Taxation Practice Concept, Dividends by Group Dynamics, was a co-opted member of IND-AS Implementation Committee of ICI during the year 2014 and 15. With this brief introduction, let us once again welcome CA DS Vivek.
Good morning to all of you, and nice to see that so many of you are interested in international taxation and to understand the basics of international taxation. Just your presence in time on a weekday, that itself inspires all the speakers who are going to be taking the sessions. For me, being part of the international taxation program is something which I cherish for a long time now. Because thanks to Kota Srinivas, he's always dedicated and committed, and he started this, if I remember, many years ago, and he conceptualized this two-day program. And the way it started was that it was not just in Bangalore, but he made a team of people where I was also part of it, and we went around tier 2, tier 3 cities, and there where they were not even exposed to international taxation, we went those places, as far off places like Guntur, Vijayawada, those places when we went there and started talking about basics of international taxation. And today, the way the practicing chartered accountants in those cities are also participating in international taxation in a very big way. That is what the credit goes to Kota Srinivas for starting it so early when doing that. So therefore, I'm always interested. And thanks Srinivas for continuing this program for a long time. And also with Shravan, the youngest chairman, very charismatic and dynamic person. Under his guidance, if this program is being done, definitely it is great. You can just see the type of program that he's been organizing. It is one after another. There's a basics of international taxation, basics of TP and advanced TP. So in a period of 3 months, I think all of you sitting here, if you want to get into this beautiful field and very challenging field, it's just possible for that. So thanks for giving us the opportunity. As Srinivas was saying that, Srinivas was saying that this is a program that is being done every 2 years once or yearly once it is being done. So what is the purpose? There might be 2 reasons for the basics of international taxation being repeatedly being done. There might be 3. One, Maybe that is the only program that Srinivas knows it, so he keeps on repeating that and nothing else. But I don't think that is what it is. The second one is that this International Tax Committee, Kota under Srinivas, has mastered this concept so well. They have identified exactly, they know what needs to be put across to people. So there are people who are interested in knowing about it every now and then. And they've actually mastered this particular 2-day program. And everything is given under that. So I think that is one of the reasons why it is being done. Or the other reason is that even those people who have attended also comes back, and what might be the reason? See, basics are always basics, right? But things are so dynamic today. Keeps on changing. And when so many changes are happening, it may be that every time when somebody listens to the basics, every time not only somebody listens to that, every time when I prepare for an overview of international taxation, which I've been talking about it for multiple years now, every time when I do, I get aware of something new every time when I talk about it. So that's a dynamic changes that keeps on happening. You know, it's so simple today. All of us think Facebook is the in thing, right? But a survey recently was done that they said that Facebook is for the old people and the youngsters are looking at Instagram and Snapchat. That is what it is. So it's the basics is the same. It may be the social media, but it is there. But things keep changing it. International taxation basics would be the same. But today people don't talk much about the double taxation avoidance agreement, treaty and all. People talk about the multilateral instruments, the BEPS projects. These are what is being done. But whichever project, whatever is being done, the basics are the same. So that is how we can come back to the basics. And I am sure that this time the flavor would be, though we are talking about basics, every speaker going forward when they are taking the sessions, they will all be dwelling upon what was the impact of BEPS on those basics understanding that we had all along and how BEPS is being implemented. And because these are all the new ways of doing things. So that's how these 2-day sessions would be. Now, what is the importance of international taxation? Before we go to international taxation, what's important is to understand that today we are living in a world where the transactions are borderless. You know, it just happens. At the speed of light, you would be transacting today across the globe. You really don't know whether you're dealing with a person sitting in India or a person sitting in US or Ireland. You just don't know. But everyday transactions are what you're doing. When you're looking to your mobile, just right now you'll be transacting on that. For some of you, I know that WhatsApp is such an interesting thing, right? So you'll be checking on something on the WhatsApp. From where is that coming from? A US company somewhere from Ireland, a server is being talked and then you are working upon it. So transaction is happening, on the spot it's happening. And the beauty of that is that we cannot no longer say that let us be happy with the transaction happening within a city, within a country. It's just not possible today. And the whole growth of the economy, the whole growth of the world and our own lifestyle keeps on developing and becoming better day by day because of the transfer of technology, transfer of people, culture, knowledge across the globe. So when this has to happen, then what will happen? Goods will start moving, services will move from one country to another country, and capital, one country capital has to be invested in another country, or our country capital will be invested somewhere else. Technology is going to move, everything is going to move. That means behind everything, there's a commercial transaction that's happening. Though we will be users, but there's a commercial transaction that is happening. Now, so it's a given fact that billions and trillions of transactions happening across the globe that is happening now. So do we want it to be come down or it want to go up? The obvious answer is that it keeps on going up, it will never come down. But what is motivating people to keep increasing that? Basically there are certain tax systems which are there which can actually have an impact on the international taxation. So one hand we saw there are a lot of transactions happening, and for a moment just keep that aside and then let us look at what is the taxation systems various countries follow. There are mainly two types of taxation system that is there. Few countries follow something called the territorial system of taxation. What that means is that they say that they will tax only income which is earned in that country, and if a person belonging to a country, person resident of that country, if he earns income anything outside that country, they will not tax it. So they say there's a territorial system. They say that only the income that you are earning within the home country, they're going to tax. Anything outside it, they say they're not going to tax it. The other system is, which is predominantly being used, is the worldwide tax system. The home country says that it doesn't matter where you earn the income, whether you earn in the home country or you earn in some other country, which country you earn doesn't matter. As long as you are a resident or a national or a corporation from that country, then you have to pay taxes on your worldwide income in that country. India is one country which follows a worldwide system, and majority of them, the number of countries which were following the territorial system is becoming less and less. Singapore, to an extent, I understand, are following a territorial based system. Even there, that's been diluted, and there are certain rules which have actually made it a worldwide taxation system, but basis was the territorial system. Then people can't afford to be only on a territorial system because the taxation is happening across the globe. So most of them are moving to the worldwide tax system. So now, when that is happening, what is it? Why are a worldwide tax system being done? See, basically we pay taxes for what? Getting some security from the country where we live. There are obligations, there are infrastructures that country provides. There are facilities which the country provides. For that you need to pay the tax. So those countries which are using the worldwide tax system, they say that if you are a citizen, if you are a resident of that country, you are getting both an economic benefit and a personal benefit to you from that country. Therefore, you are required to pay taxes in your home country. So they are giving that to you, so of every benefit that's being given, therefore they say that you have to have the worldwide taxes. So if you look from the home country, then they are very much right in saying that they need to tax on the worldwide income. On the other hand, suppose a person from US is having a business in India, then India, US we can consider as the home country, India we consider as the source country. Because where the business earning income, they are doing some sales activity or some market activity here in India, the source is in India. So then India comes and says that, see, because you are getting an economic benefit of doing business with Indian consumers. So there is a economic utilization of India to that extent. We say that there is an economic link in it. Therefore, India says that I also want to tax what you are earning. Are they right? Obviously, even they are right. Because the home country, they are giving some benefits, they are taxing. The source country, they are also providing the economic benefit. There is a linkage between the source country and the foreign company. They also have to tax. Now, what happens if everybody starts taxing it? Say, US takes 30%, India takes 30%. What is left over for the entrepreneur? What is left over for the businessman? What is left over? He is left with nothing. So, therefore, by each person, though they have the right to tax it, what would be left after taxing by everybody? There, they don't have anything left over. Therefore, the taxation system being followed across the world actually demotivates business house and entrepreneurs, business houses to do business cross-border. Why should I do cross-border business? Let me do business within India, pay one-time tax of 30%. Or do you want to do business in US, I pay 30 there, left there was 40. Definitely I don't want to do it. So that is the basic importance of that. And double taxation, because of double taxation, it affects economic growth and transaction gets affected. And if that is not happening, people would get confined to doing business within the same country. And just imagine, people start doing business in their own country, there's no flow of technology, nothing is happening then. What would our life be? We would be somewhere still sitting in some few ages back without using the best of the technology. So what all benefit we are using today of the best of the technology is because there is this subject on international taxation where every effort has been done to see that the income earner is not suffering taxes in multiple countries, but he earns the tax reasonably. There's a sharing of taxes between the home country and the source country. That's the whole thing is the subject of international tax. If you look at it, the tax you pay in the home country is nothing but an obligation, because you are there in that country, you are obliged to pay that. It doesn't depend upon how much I earn, what are the benefits I get from that home country. I am required to pay. And the home country is always based on your ability to pay the tax. Therefore, it's called an obligation. You know, like we have the slab. First 2.5 lakhs. Sorry if I got the slabs wrong. So first 2.5 lakhs, there's 0, and then up to 5, it is say 10, and then after that 20, 30, there's a slab rate. Right? So it's based on obligation. But in case of a host country tax, it's a cost. It is not an obligation, it's a cost. Therefore, cost is directly linked to what you are earning. It doesn't matter what slab, what income that you make, it doesn't matter that. If you're doing business in the host country, then there's a source country taxes you on that, maybe 10% or 20% on the overall earning that you do. That is how it becomes a cost for you in the source country taxation. So just to give an example, this is what happens that it can happen. This is what can happen actually. Suppose a US company is having a branch in India. India will talk about 40% tax. Of course, it's much more because there's a surcharge, etc. And US is talking about a 35% tax. Today they have brought it down to say 25, but still there are 25. And there's a US state tax of 10%. So after doing all this, what is left over is only 15. So this is what is international tax, because everybody wants to pay the taxes. So what happens? So is that right? Can a businessman left with 15? So I don't think we will be able to appreciate much from this angle about the money that is there. I was just thinking, where this, look at, we all part of a family, right? Some of you are married, some of you are not married. So let us say that your home is your home country. Okay. And all of us are working. So when we go out to work, you go to your office. That, let us say, that's the host country. What you have in a day, you have 24 hours of time. So you go to office, because you're earning from the office expects you to spend time. They say that you need to spend around 10 to 12 hours every day on that. 8 hour job is gone today. So it's a minimum of 12 hours is what you need to spend there. So 24, 12 is gone, 12 hours are there. You come home, the home minister, whoever it may be, maybe the husband or the wife, it depends upon. So the home minister says that, I don't care how much of hours you put in your office, but the home needs to be run. The home also requires time. You need to spend time with family, there are house errands, and you need to spend around 10 hours there on that. So 12 gone there, 10 home errands and home taking care. So what is left is another 2 hours. In 2 hours, what can I do? I can't even have a proper sleep. I can't even go with my friend. What do I do after doing everything? So that's what happens, right? So double action is that you take out the money there, but here the time is taken out. So then what do you do? So basically you go, sit down, the family members sit down and then discuss and say that, okay, instead of putting 12 hours in office they go and negotiate and say that, boss, I can't put 12 hours, I'm going to put in 10 hours and some hours maybe I'm going to work from home. That's a negotiation that we do. Come to home and then discuss and say, I see, only because I do work at office, the home is getting benefited, everything is happening here. So therefore I think you take over more job from the home and I will take less job and I will put in only around 5 hours or 6 hours at the home, and there's a negotiation happens. So this negotiation is exactly what has happened between countries. It's that everybody takes away, this person is left with nothing. So let us negotiate and then see how the taxes that has to be paid are shared. Here the time, here there the taxes, those charges are shared, and that has resulted in the agreement between various countries. So it is not a law, but an agreement which was mutually negotiated. Mutual negotiation happens between two countries. They sit down, negotiate, and then they decide how the tax should be shared on any particular transactions. So in a sense, this is what the entire international taxation is all about, is that, which we are going to see in the next 2 days. For every income, the treaties talk about, the negotiations happen for every type of income. For royalty, how do you need to treat it? For interest, if you are earning, what do you do? For business income, what it is, has to be done. But there is some kind of a framework that needs to be there. So international taxation has given actually some kind of a framework based on which these things are happening. So understanding what the treaty is about, which we want to discuss further on that, there's a concept of source, right? I told you there's a source taxation and a home country taxation. Now let us understand what do you mean by a source. See, income, if you are earning, is not confined to any geographic location. It is not confined to geography. Wherever the person is there, it is actually belongs to that person. And if that person is a movable person, then income goes along with it. This cannot be confined to a geographical location. But however, where is income coming from? What is the income? Why do you get income? When you go and work somewhere, what are you putting? You are using your time there. It's an time is an asset. You are using your time there in a particular country. Therefore, there's a return for your time. You are using certain assets. There are certain functions that you play. So basically, we can say that it's a combination of assets and functions that a person carries on. That is rewarded by him earning an income. So the source country means where if a particular transaction where the entire activities, all the assets related, which is resulting in earning that income, say in country A, then the source of that income is in country A. So the source country taxation means entire income earning from that particular activity would be taxed in country A. So for example, let us say that we are talking about a person earning salary. Say even a US person, if he has come to India and entire time of his workable time he spends in India and all his activities are in India, how much percentage of this income of salary is sourced in India? I would say 100%, because everything is happening in India. Nothing is happening in US. So the entire source is in India. Now let us take another example about a manufacturing activity happens in India and then this product is sent to my branch in US and from the branch the products are sold. Now where is the functions and assets happening? Where do you say that? The manufacturing assets are in India, the product is emanating from India, so there are certain activities and assets utilized in India. But the end consumer is there, so the selling activity happens in US, the marketing activity happens in US, there are certain marketing intangibles that are used in US, so there's a source even there in US. This is where that creates a problem. The source is both in India as well as the source is there in US. So then you need to, basically what you need to do, there's 100 rupees of profit you have made, you need to allocate that in terms of where the assets and functions have been performed. Based on that, it has to be allocated. This exactly is the same concept that you are going to talk about and learn more about, when you go to business profits, how business profits are derived at, how it's computed. This is the concept that we are going to work upon and do that. So this is how the source is there. So source is where the assets are there. So that country will tax you on a source based of taxation. We are talking about double taxation, right? So double taxation normally, in theory, the double taxation is said to happen in multiple types of double tax. What causes double taxation is, it's called a judicial double taxation. Basically, it says that the same person A, like we said, company A, having manufacturing unit in India and then a branch in US, on the same profit, if he is required to pay tax both in India as well as in US, and the same point of time, same person, same income, but on the same period, but he has to pay tax in both the cases, that is called the jurisdiction double taxation. Most the treaties actually try to give benefit from jurisdictional double taxation. There's also another type of double taxation, which is called an economic double taxation. Economic double taxation is, it is the same income, type of income is the same, but two different persons are taxed on that. That is called economic double taxation. Say for example, that would be a company pays the taxes, the profits on that, then the dividends are declared to the shareholder, and again the shareholder needs to pay dividend tax. What is the income that went? It's the same income, right? What the shareholder got as dividend is nothing but the profits already is there in the company which goes to him as dividend. So it is the same income but getting taxed in two different people. Normally this can happen both domestic as well as international transaction can happen. Treaties, many treaties do not provide for relief from this economic double taxation. But some treaties are evolved where they are giving credits, like a US or a UK treaty with India, they give something called a credit or an underlying tax credit. Basically what they say that even if the company has, the shareholder has to pay tax say in UK for an income earning from an Indian company. They say that even if you have to pay tax in UK on your dividend income, since the profits have already suffered tax by the company, whatever the company has paid tax, proportionate to you, I will give you the credit in your personal tax returns in UK. This is called something called an underlying tax credit. So if that is not there, then normally treaties do not have an answer for the economic double taxation. So most of the treaties focus upon giving relief from the jurisdictional double taxation is what it is. And what are the causes of double tax? As we had already seen, but just to make you aware of this concept, I'm trying to look at here the concepts important about these terminologies. This is very important that as I'm talking, you have to capture those terminologies, because in the next few sessions, when the speakers are going to talk about, they're just going to use the terms and the concepts. They may not be explaining those terms and concepts. So this will actually give you a base for the next whole of the next 2 days. So it's called a residence-residence conflict. What can be residence-residence conflict? Double taxation can happen because of residence-residence conflict. So let us say like this. A person, say a US citizen, we have seen quite a lot of them. A lot of US nationals who are basically, they were all Indians. At one point of time there was a boom happening that, brain drain, we were all earlier. People used to be here and then they go and settle down in US, they got US citizenship, they were all there. Things started looking better in India, so they all started moving back to India. But they continue to be US citizens. So when they are working in India, they are having their life in India. India says, because you are staying more than 183 days, you are a resident in India, and India says, I will tax you on a worldwide income. US says that because you continue to hold a US passport, you are a US citizen, they say that for me also, my law also talks about worldwide taxation. Therefore, you are a resident in my country, I will also tax you. So, important is that at least if it's a source country, the home country says that if you have paid tax in the source country, I will give you credit in the home country. Now look at this situation. Both of them say that I will tax you, I will tax you. And there is no source country. Only when the tax is paid in the source country, the home country can give credit. In this case, both are home country, home country. This fellow pays up and this, even the treaty doesn't come for a relief, and he will not get any tax credit. So he ends up paying the 15 rupees what I told you, that's what he will end up with. So therefore, the treaties have a provision called, something called a tiebreaker clause, which you will again talk about in the residential status when we are talking about it. There's a tiebreaker clause which talks about that. If you are decided to be resident, both the countries fight for your residence, then there's something called a tiebreaker clause, which you apply the tiebreaker clause, and 95% of the time you will be able to say that he is a resident of one country. Once he is a resident of one country, the other country becomes the source country, the problem is solved. 5% of the time does it also not happen, then those two countries can fight with each other and then tell him, no, but this fellow is resident of my country. So that's what can happen. So this is residence-residence conflict. Other one is source-residence conflict, which we have been discussing about. Home country taxes source, whole worldwide income. Host country taxes the source, therefore there's a conflict. Sometimes there's a source-source conflict also. What is the source-source conflict? Two countries say the source is in my country. Like that business what we talked about, a manufacturing company from India selling there. India is saying manufacturing activity happened in my country, the source is here. US says that no selling activity happened there, the source is there. Both of them will claim 100 because of source. Then basically that there's the apportionment of the income based on source, there should be apportionment, that's called a source-source conflict. And sometimes when there's a third country that's involved, suppose an US company has a manufacturing facility in India, and from India the sales are happening to neighboring country, Sri Lanka is happening. Now every country will talk about there's a soul, there's a this, everything that happens. So how do we treat that? These are the complex cases. These are called triangular cases, and there you require one treaty may not be there. Based on India-US treaty, you need to look at one angle. Based on India-Sri Lanka angle, one way of looking at it. Then again, US-Sri Lanka, that also you need to look at it. And then combination of all the treaty read together, you will be able to get a solution for that. Is that clear? There's actually, to give relief from double taxation, there need not be a treaty at all. The home country itself, India has that. Section 90, that also talks about that. India themselves can say that if you have paid taxes in one country, I'll give you credit for that. That is done. No need to even negotiate with anybody and then go for it. But what happens that, please look at it, when you mean credit of taxes, doesn't mean that if India says, unilaterally it says that if you have paid 25 rupees in US and the tax here is 30 rupees in India, I'll give you 25 rupees of tax and you pay only 5. That unilaterally they can do it. Whether it's unilateral or agreement doesn't mean that the US government will not write a check to the Indian government for 25 rupees. They're not going to do any fund transfer. It's basically India has foregone that 25 rupees. There's no, as the taxpayer is concerned, he is paying only 30. As long as the country is getting only 5. They're not getting the 25 at all. So what's happening is that India would have foregone it. If you do on a unilateral matter, then always it would be what is happening is India is giving away that right to tax. But in an agreement, if it's there as part of the DTA agreement, then what is happening is there's a negotiation happening and then there's a sharing happening. So basically based on that, instead of India bearing the whole cost if it's a unilateral relief, by a bilateral agreement, the sharing of taxes happens based on agreements and India doesn't, the cost is shared by both of them. So the whole of international tax goes, overall we can say that there's a framework for that. There is not a law actually, but it's more of a framework. Because the agreements have a framework, the entire concept of international taxation has a framework that is there. And the framework goes something like this. One is, it is an agreement between two countries. An individual person is not a party to it. Between the two countries, they agree upon something and the individual taxpayers follow that. They talk about sharing of taxation rights between the countries. They talk about sharing of taxation rights between the countries. Treaty as such does not bring an additional obligation on a taxpayer. To understand that, a treaty will not make a taxpayer to pay taxes. The domestic law would have cast the obligation to pay tax. Treaty only gives a relief on that. What is not taxed, treaty will not bring that into a taxation system. So each country will decide what rights they have to forego, what they need to win, based on the economic consideration that happens. It's a negotiation that happens. And these negotiations are really intense negotiations. They have to look at it, not the current one, the way things are happening. They need to look at it from the future, what all is going to happen, and then do that. See, try to things they have to do unilaterally. You've been seeing the war that's going on the US-China trade war. We've all been talking. USA will impose customs duty on so much of imports that happen from China. Immediately China says, what I import from China, I do that. These are all unilateral. And who suffers? The business suffers. But instead of that, if they had sat down, they were in agreement, but they don't want to now get into that. They get in agreement and then they talk about it. Even the end customers would be happy. So unilateral and bilateral, that's what is important. Negotiations, you can give one, take some, that's what would be happening. Apart from that, the treaty talks not only a purpose of giving relief, it's also a purpose of exchange of information. See, how will an Indian government know what is the income earned by an Indian taxpayer in any other country in the world? How will they know? If it doesn't disclose, they just don't know that, right? So the more and more that countries are developing is that exchange of information is taking a lot of importance now. In fact, things called an automatic exchange of information is happening. Flow of data is becoming more systematic, more automatically it's happening. It's with this part of the treaty that the other country is now bound to give information about the transactions done in that jurisdiction to India, and then India will have the resources and information for it to tax it. So, a lot of importance is now given to the exchange of information. There was a time when the other portion of the treaty was there, but today, I think exchange of information is becoming a very, very big thing, and there's not only India, but if you look at it, US has got something called a FATCA. You would have all signed a FATCA declaration saying that even me being a Indian citizen with my bank, I need to sign off a FATCA saying that I don't have any obligations in US, I do not have any income in US that I need to do that. Otherwise, it's an automatically every bank, if it's a US citizen dealing with India, the banks automatically give that information to the US IRS. So this is exchange of information is very important. And also next important is that, yes, today we know that how whenever there's a tax is there or any recovery that is there, it's so easy to fly away from a country and then settled. So there should be a mechanism of, even if that person is not there, either if somebody from India flies away there to other country, we should be able to still get that information, or other country person is liable for tax in India, we can't go and do that. So using the mechanism of the tax administrative mechanism of that country, you can still recover the taxes. So tax recovery assistance between the countries, how it will work, what it is, that's also part of the tax treaties framework. So this is the entire framework of a tax treaty. From an India angle, where is the power for legislating this treaty? Anything, even for a treaty to be done, there's a negotiation, we all talked about it's a negotiation. But even for them to negotiate and sign off on that, somebody should have been authorized for that. Where is that coming from? Basically, there is entry 14 of list 1, which is giving them the power to the central government for entering into agreements and treaties with foreign countries. That is the power. And that power has been delegated to the CBDT, the competent authority, under section 90 of the Income Tax Act, where they said that the central government can enter into contracts with that. So this is just for you to understand where the power to execute treaties are there. So this is the scope of treaty. We have already discussed it, and the objective is definitely to see that there's a free flow of movement of technology, capital, manpower, everything is able to move, and there's a so type of treaties that are there can be a bilateral treaty or a multilateral treaty. Majority of them are bilateral treaties. What India has entered into bilateral treaties, basically between country A and country B. This is called bilateral. But sometimes it may be possible, I think EU may be having kind of a treaty, not exactly income tax treaty, but there are treaties which are EU treaty, which is a multilateral treaty. All the members of the EU have signed up on a treaty on how they need to do. Treaty did not always be a tax treaty. It can be for any purpose of economic development or sharing of resources, etc. So EU, entire people have got a multilateral treaty. India, one only way we can look at is that there was a SAR treaty on taxation, which was actually not governing the taxing rights, but more on administrative control, how to do same type of training across the tax authorities. They have signed a SAR treaty. But otherwise, everything is a bilateral treaty. And of course, the recent one, as Srinivas was talking about, there's the multilateral instrument that is coming. What has happened is, under the BEPS project, the OECD, there were around 100 countries who participated in that, and as of today, approximately around 75 countries have signed off. India is also one of them. They all agreed upon some common minimum understanding about it. That is actually not a multilateral instrument, it's a guideline for these people who have signed off as to how they need to look at their treaties. And if their treaties is not in line with the multilateral instrument, they give a commitment that we will modify our treaties along with that, or they sign a document saying that we follow these particular things of the multilateral instrument would be forming part of our treaties. So there would be your bilateral treaty with a particular country, and India would have signed off and said that these part of multilateral instrument will be also part of these particular treaties. So both together, if you read it, that's how you will be able to read your treaty laws in the future. What I understand is that the multilateral instrument and it's going to start effectively from 1st of July, because Austria is one country which is going to be implementing effectively from 1st of July. But of course, I'm not very sure if Austria has said 1st of July, but the other countries are not there from 1st of July. That may still not be there. So I have said yes, but the other country also should say yes, and only then it will happen. So it will maybe take a year or so for it to come effective. Narendra?
From India's perspective, because we have not deposited the instrument, and it will at least take 18 months from India's perspective.
From India perspective.
So if we look at the main law to be applicable, if we deposit the instrument before September, then we may have something in next April. But if we do it after April, it's all going to be 2020.
So from India perspective, it all depends upon next year or 2020, when we may have to start looking at both the multilateral instrument plus our treaty and then do that. So Srinivas, that time you need to have a bigger section on this. There will be a major change in that when we have to look at it. So as I said that, how do you choose between treaty and domestic tax? See, as I told you, treaty will not impose your any taxation. Domestic tax is what imposes the taxation. The scope is more on that. And the taxpayer has the right to choose the benefit given either by the domestic law or by the treaty law. There's a benefit only that can be given on it. So the taxpayer has the choice to do that. For example, if you know that the royalty definition in the India treaty is very narrow, and they have included software specifically as part of the royalty definition. Many tax treaties have not brought, they have brought copyright but not actually software as part of that. So a lot of litigation is going on even today, whether one can say that the treaty is much more liberal, so on payment to software I don't have to pay taxes. Of course there are judicial decisions which are against it and all that, but conceptually the definition of royalty may be much broader than the definition of royalty in the domestic law. So a taxpayer has got the right to choose which he wants to do that. Also, when earlier, this capital gains tax was exempt when you sell a listed company shares, but the treaty did not have that. In the domestic law, 1038 gave that exemption. So there, a taxpayer would have chosen that I will go by the provisions of the domestic law rather than the treaty. So the taxpayer has the right to choose which provision he wants to choose and do that. So that's how the treaty versus domestic act is beneficial. And just to see a brief about what is the difference between a treaty and a domestic law is that if you look at that, basically treaty is governed by international law and the domestic law by the national agreement that is there. And apart from the various methods of arguing or disputing the treaty provisions, in treaty, because it is an international law and there are two countries involved, you can actually go to the first to the appeals, the Commission of Appeals, ITAD, and then the courts, and you can also go something called a mutual agreement procedure. Basically, the competent authorities of two countries, they're going to negotiate on behalf of the two taxpayers and then come up with that. So treaty law gives you that benefit of one more arbitrary avenue for it, which in case of the domestic law, it is only the appeals and court. I think there's that map has been included there, that the last one should not be there. Okay, so I have another 10 minutes. Okay, different models of the treaty. One is called the OECD model, other one is called the UN model. Now what are these models? These models are, as the name says, it's a model. It is not a law. It is a template, is what at the most what I can say is a template. But it's a very well thought of template, and people have agreed, part of the people who are part of the OECD, they all sat down and have agreed that this would be in general the template. So this becomes the basis for any negotiations to start. If two OECD countries are there, the first thing they will say is that let us adopt the OECD model overall. Then they can still sit down, they did not follow that every time, they can still sit down and then say, in this particular case, let us say that will differ from the OECD model, and then we can either modify it, not adopt it, or have a different clause, especially from the OECD model, that is the OECD model. And normally OECD model is from the between two developed countries, and the emphasis there is on the tax rights goes to the home country. Between developed countries at that point of time they had done that was that they were the exporters of, developed countries were the exporters of capital. So they said capital is the key. What is important is capital. So where the capital generating from is the home country. Therefore they said the right should be for the home country. Other countries getting benefited. So they should not be able to tax it, but the home country should do it. That was the emphasis of OECD model. But the UN model came wherein other than the developed countries, a lot of developing countries also were there. India was also part of the UN model, where they said that, see, there is a source. There is a capital being used from the home country, but the capital is getting exploited here in the source country. The very purpose a person is getting income is because of the exploitation of the economic link in the source country or the host country. Therefore, source country should also have a right to tax. These are the two models. But as we are looking at, most of them are even between the whole countries that are moving more to source countries, because every government wants more and more taxes to run their country. It's not been sufficient. The type of activities going on, infrastructure they need to create, the requirements of all the citizens of that country, it's not possible to do that. So more of them are moving more, I would say, more towards the source country concept is where the emphasis is still coming upon for that. Some of the differences between OECD model and the UN model. As I told you, OECD is talking about more of a home country concept than this one. So there's something called a permanent establishment. Permanent establishment is nothing like a virtual office. One country has got a virtual business office in another country through which the business is being carried on. To that extent, I will leave it. Later on, there will be detailed explanation on that. So if they say that if you are creating this permanent establishment, which is nothing but like a virtual presence in the other country, OECD says it should be for a 12-month period. UN model says even if it's a 6-month, you have a PE. And the concept is that if there's no PE, the business income, the business activity is not getting taxed in that source country. So if you look at OECD, it gives a very long time for that PE to be triggered because they believe in the home country should have the right. And they talk about if it is OECD talks about a building site, construction, installation project, all comes under PE. And UN model also further goes on to talk about an assembly project or a supervisory services also creates a PE. And OECD always emphasized that royalty income should be taxed in the home country, but the UN model talks about royalty should suffer limited tax in the source country. So though India is part of the UN model, but because of the importance of India gaining throughout the world in the economic development of the world, OECD has invited them to be an observer on their OECD. In fact, today when the multilateral instrument was signed, India is also a party to the multilateral instrument, which was actually done by the OECD. So as an observer, basically you have a right to give your comments and have some reservations on certain points of the OECD agreement. You have a right. And India in fact has given certain reservations on the OECD model. So when an interpretation of the tax treaty with the OECD country is happening, those reservations, what India has expressed, do have a weightage in interpreting those tax treaties. How does the source country tax us? Home country is full tax simple. How does the source country tax us? Source country has got around 3 types of ways to do that. One is at the full rates, like the domestic law, it's the full tax country. Salary income, whatever salary income is done, 100% tax. Business income, whatever the permanent establishment earns their business income, 100% tax on that. That's the full rate. The other one is that at a lower rate or may cap the rate. For example, dividend, interest and all, they said that the tax rate should not be more than 10%. Is most of the treaties have talked about. So they say that whatever the source country will tax is only 10%. Then the other one is that though India has a right, the source country, I am using India here, the source country has a right to tax it based on source for a temporary period or for some period, for whatever reason, for economic interest, they may give away that right and not tax them. For example, the earlier India-Mauritius treaty, which also continues for some period, for that, the capital gains is liable for tax in India. That is there, right is there. But they gave away that right and said it can be taxed only in Mauritius. So that was the third way of taxing it. And of course, today India has gone further. They said that if you want a treaty benefit to be given to you, apart from the source taxation, you need to prove that you are a tax resident of that country, only then you can take the benefit. And they said that you need to provide a tax residency certificate. Without that, you are not, that country person will not get the benefit of the treaty. So, what is home country taxation? Because the source country has already paid, collected the taxes, what will the home country do? Will they say, no, source country has paid, home country can they give up? For that, there is no treaty required. Home country, because of the domestic law, has always got the right to tax it. But again, in the treaty, sometimes the home country gives away its right. For example, there is something called a tax-paying credit that the home country gives. For example, an income is exempt in India. It is, by domestic law, it is taxable in that home country. But they say that though if it is exempt in India, we also give you that exemption. That's a tax-paying credit they give. So home country always has the right, irrespective of what the treaty did not bring it to tax, but treaty can still give benefit to the resident also on some aspects. So how does the treaty we are talking about, right? Like we are talking about treaty is what we have been talking about. Now what is that the treaty comprises about? Like Income Tax Act we have all read, there is section 1 to 200 and odd sections are there. There in a treaty, instead of sections there are articles that are there. Article 1 to Article 31, there are various articles that are there. And how are articles, or in how are they clustered, or what do they talk about? So basically, the components of a treaty are, there are certain articles which talk about the scope of the treaty, which talks about who is the person who is governed under the treaty, what are the taxes covered under the treaty. Every taxation doesn't come under the treaty. Between India and US, only the federal taxes are covered, but not the state taxes. So only to that extent only you can use that. And what is the time period, which is the financial year, what is the 12-month period. Sorry. So there is the scope provisions. Then there is the definition provision. There are 2 articles which talks about defining certain terms used in the treaty. See, if a particular term is used repeatedly multiple times in the treaty, those are found in the definition page it found. But there are certain things which are used, say royalty, interest, permanent settlement. They are specifically to the treaties on royalty or interest. In that case, it is defined in those things itself. Then we have the substantive provisions. What is substantive provision? Basically, that talks about how the income and capital, how the allocation of rights happen between which country and what country it has to happen, and how to compute the quantum in certain cases. Then there is the articles which talks about elimination of double taxation. Basically, if there is a double taxation, how the home country will give credit, or it may either give a credit or give an exemption for that to be taxed in the other country. The anti-avoidance provisions which talks about in the treaty, which is basically like transfer pricing what we have. A similar transfer pricing provisions are also there as part of the treaty. Then there is other miscellaneous provisions to govern the treaty. Apart from that, the treaty also has something called protocols and memorandum. Post the treaty is signed, any clarifications that has to be done between the 2 countries, they enter into protocols or an amendments to the treaty or a memorandum of understanding. One of the important MOUs are between India and US. There is a memorandum of understanding which has a whenever reading India-US treaty, reading the memorandum is very important, especially while we are talking about royalty and fees for technical service. Okay, next 5 minutes I'll do that. So basically, if you look at the rules, how the treaty has been done, one, I'm not going to details, I just have 5 minutes, so basically let me try to complete within that. So basically, the entire treaty can be looked at in different ways. One is, we can say that the treaty has got some income classification rules. Basically, they talk about how income needs to be classified, under what category, and once that income classification rules are there, each of the articles tries to classify a particular transaction as a particular type of income. Something may fall under royalty, something may fall under FTA, something may fall under business income, so what it is. Then the entire treaty can be looked at from a treaty source rules. Basically what? So it will talk about where the source is coming from. It will say, in a particular, say in case of a royalty or an interest dividend, which is the source from which it is emanating, is what it talks about. And then we have the assignment rules. Basically that talks about how much is the share of the source country, how much would be the source of the main country. Sometimes it says that shall be taxed only in the source country. That means it will be taxed only in the source country, nothing in the home country. Sometimes it says that maximum of 10% in the source country. That means the balance amount of tax can be taxed in the home country. Therefore, there is an assignment rules that keep on happening. This is the way the treaties have been assigned. So let me not, you can go through these slides at a future time. Apart from though, the entire purpose of treaties is to bring in and give relief to that, sometimes it has been said there are treaties also have certain limitations. And these limitations have become more so because the way the business is being transacted, the way things, the human inventiveness of the humans, and always trying to see how you can take the benefit of everything, those are certain limitations. What are those limitations? Basically, limitations were on certain things can be double non-taxation. I was talking about India-Mauritius Treaty, World War. The treaty says India will not tax capital gains and it will be taxed in Mauritius. Mauritius has domestic losses, it is not even taxable there. So it becomes a double non-taxation. The purpose of treaty was to avoid double taxation, but it becomes double non-taxation. So this is a problem that was there. Then there's a hybrid entities like partnership firm in US. There the partners are taxed, not the partnership firm. In India, we tax the partners. This is a hybrid entity. There are pass-through entities. In such cases, if the partnership firm is not at all a tax resident in that country, then you don't get a treaty benefit. So how do you match that? There's a limitation that was there. So treaties are getting amended. All these things are getting an amendment for that. For example, avoidance of permanent establishment. Today we all know Google, Facebook are very much in India, right? Who says that they are not there in India? But all of us say they are in India, but only the Google and those tax authorities like a tax authority like us, we say no, they are not in India. We say no, they are nothing, they don't have any presence in India, they don't have to pay tax. That's why as a tax person. But as a user, we say it is there. So, because of the laws that were there, so they were avoiding permanent establishment concept. So they said that even if you don't have a physical presence, if you have a virtual presence, if you're connected to it, how that has to be done. Those are the evolving treaty project that is happening, and all that is happening in the BEPS project that has been there. I think that would be most probably shared during the discussions. That would be part of the discussion that would happen. So BEPS is trying to bring in certain limitations in the old treaty laws. They have thought about it and have brought some solutions to that. And it may not be the end of it. Something now is done, in another 10 years there are new problems that can come up, and always it's an evolving that will happen. And last but how do you interpret tax treaties? You interpret tax treaties in this order. Maybe use the commentaries that's given in the OECD model. That is what analogy from that. Then otherwise actually you use the ordinary meaning, because it's an agreement, it's not a law, you use the ordinary meaning for it. And also Vienna Convention on International Taxation has given certain guidelines on how to interpret treaties, international treaties. So those models also can be talked about. And then the preambles, the exchange notes, the protocols, all this will help you in interpreting the treaty for that. So I think this is what certain definitions of that, you go by the treaty definition. If not there, then go by the domestic expression is what you can go for it. Okay. There are a lot of concepts which will be being discussed in the whole thing. So one important thing is that, understand that all of you here all want to get into this whole beautiful game or challenge about international taxation. It's very interesting. The more and more you read, you get confused and you get clarity. You get confused totally, but suddenly when you read, you get confused, then you get a clarity. And it's evolving. Suddenly certain things that comes at the last minute, you have been knowing this, but suddenly you get another trigger. And that happens, And that trigger can create anything. Like Srinivas was talking about the Germany match, the South Korea match. I was seeing Germany, South Korea, my son said, there were almost 90 minutes and there was 0-0. Then today morning he said, no, Germany lost by 2. I said, how? In the last 2 minutes, there was a thing. So that spark, when it will come, you don't know. And when it comes, you get that. So you need to be involved in the subject, keep moving into that everything. And as for those of you who have been doing domestic taxation and want to move to the international taxation, one suggestion, not just to move to international taxation, anything that you need to do, you need to bring a change in yourself on that. You need to start attending sessions like this, reading more and more about it. You come today, attend the session and get inspired, I will do international taxation. After you go back, you don't do it. No, you don't get international taxation. Whatever knowledge you have got, it's a knowledge, but unless you use it, it's of no use. The only way is that for you to change it, and then you need to monitor whether you are being in touch with the international taxation on a regular basis. In fact, and then monitor it and then sustain that being there. You at least 1 year be in touch with the subject. Every day read something on it and do that. In fact, there are certain things for me as a person, not only international taxation, any new change I bring in, I have an attendance book in my house. I have certain things, like exercise, waking up, not being angry, everything I have an attendance book. For one of you can say international tax could be one line item and then tick off every day. First few days you will see cross. For me, for my exercise, is most of the times it's a cross. But at least I'm becoming aware that I'm not following it. And that will make me do that. So have something like that. Be involved in the subject and just being involved for a decent period of time, reasonable period of time, I think you will all can master the subject a lot. So this was just a trailer for the whole thing. Sometimes trailer can be interesting, the movie can be bad, but sometimes the trailer is good and the movie is much more exciting. So I am thinking that the trailer was good and the movie is definitely going to be much more exciting for the next 2 days. Thank you so much.
Sir, Mr. Vivek, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sir, for the international tax practitioners or international tax assessees. Currently, the reference materials are the treaties and the domestic taxation law. MLI, EPS, OECD, these are all just academic things at the moment. Am I right or wrong?
No, sir. These are no longer academic. It is today, as I said, in 2 years it is there. When is 2 years it is going to be now? And when we are advising the client today, we are advising the client not for today's transaction. We are advising the client for today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So if we don't know what changes are coming tomorrow, day after, and we give an advice today, it's totally going to be wrong. So we need to look into that. MLI has to be there. Both. The basics are there, but the way basics are interpreted, the way to look at it, you want to add something?
Yeah.
Sir, EPS and OECD, they are guidance frameworks which make the governments, participating governments, to arrive at the mutual treaties or the MLI instruments. So, a tax practitioner or a tax assessee has no role in playing when using BEPS or OECD. Because as a tax practitioner, I can't be a participant in any OECD based guidelines and therefore force the government to enter into a tax treaty in a particular manner. Those are all guidelines for governments. For tax practitioners or consultants or tax assessees, only the materialized agreements will form the guideline. Whether it's an MLI, which you said yes, it is going to happen in next 2 days, therefore it will be relevant. DTA, which is currently, and of course the domestic laws. So BEPS and OECD are only guidance which we can still know them, but we have no role in either accepting or rejecting it as citizens or practitioners.
Sir, as a role, if you say we don't have a role, even the parliament jointly announces the budget, we don't have any role in it. We just accept it and then do that. But the moment, even before it becomes a law, the next 30 days, 40 days that is left over, how much work will we do? Because once it becomes a law, we need to know this and then what are changes we can bring in. So knowing about what's happening in the world, what changes are going to happen, India might not be a party today. Something called POEM was not even there in Indian treaty, but Indian tax laws, it was not there. We were all talking about POEM whenever academically we were talking about treaty of effective management. Today then India has got a POEM within the domestic tax, and then so when we had structured so many transactions without POEM, keeping in mind POEM. But today those structures have all failed because of the place of effective management. Those are brought to tax for India. So you should be aware of what's happening, everything. Okay, thanks for it. And in fact, I did not expect any questions here because the questions are all, please keep it reserved for those experts who are going to come there. I'm not an expert on international tax. I'm just a generalist on that. Then we have now a series of experts who are going to come. They really know the subject well, so you can ask those questions to them. Thank you.
We had a detailed overview of international taxation. Let us thank the speaker for an outstanding presentation and a piece of advice for the beginners, those who wants to start any new venture or any new practice line. Let us thank the speaker. It is a time to present a memento as a token of appreciation and gratitude. May I request CA Kothai Srinivas to come forward and present a memento to the speaker. Let us thank the speaker once again. Thank you very much. Let us break for 15 minutes and come back sharp 11:30 for the next technical session.
Just one point. Normally I have a habit of giving homework also. So this slides also has some additional slides which also talk about how the treaties are being there, what article, what it is. If you spend some time between the breaks that you have to go through that, that will give you a mind to get prepared for you to attend to the other sessions.